So let me tell you a little bit about where I was and some of the things that are exciting. First, a little bit about Israel. In Hatzofeh was a description of what I did at Kol HaNeshama. It's a very nice one, and if you want to take a look at it, you can see it later on. So, this is one thing. The other thing is, okay.
What paper is Hatzofeh?
I don't know what paper Hatzofeh is. I just got this Ruth. Send it to me. Hi. Then I got...
No, I think you didn't want me to pass it around.
No.
No, sorry.
You get to see it later. I don't want you to be distracted at this point. Another thing I found was a wonderful little book by Rav Kook called Chadarav, which is Heviani HaMelech Chadarav. The king has brought me into his chambers. So I got so excited. I'll read you two little shtikelach I started to translate. Oh yes, this thing I said I was going to put it down. Okay. And can I have that white one over there, that little other machine color? Good. Thank you. Thank you.
Reb Zalman is wired.
Yeah. I'd like to send a thing also to the people who were my hosts, Joe and Rolinda. It was at their house that I found that little booklet by Rav Kook. So, from within, from my sources, I must draw constantly to take to awareness the treasures hidden. I am bound to that sacred pain that seeks the highest wholeness. This does not fill me fully, for this is the eternal web. It doesn't still this longing, and it must not still it. Its source is a thirst divine which no other thing in the world will quench except solely that one sought. That thirst that yearns for beyond and more, and that is recognized more and more, and is itself transformed into the source of ecstasy, the matrix of all spiritual delights, the glow of Shaddai. Oh, that's another shtickle, but I don't know what happened to
Do you
it.
have it in the
one
Hebrew,
right there
Reb
on your
Zalman?
leg.
Huh?
Do you have it in the Hebrew?
Yes.
There's one right here.
In your
There it fell. I'll show you the Hebrew book too. I have it here. I haven't seen it before, and I got very excited because these were the entries that he did by hand in his journal. Another one. I'm full of love for God, though knowing that what I long for, what I love, is not what can be called, is holy without a name. How can I assign a word that which is more than everything, more than good, more than anything that can be the answer to the question what, more than being, and still I love, and still I say I love God, and that naming God, and in that naming God He nests, in my expressing it He dwells, and as the heart, the human, beating heart seeks to call Him, adoring Him, adorning Him, the heart reveals the heart, hums, lifting my breathing soul ever higher. It's just a wonderful song. I'm going to make, from time to time, this is sort of a relaxing thing for me to be able to take another poem and to give it English words. When we were at the grave of Hannah Rochel of Lidmir, I think that's important to tell you too. Leader, the son Evan Leader, wonderful person. I met him before the Chassanet, and he is engaged with Art Green and with Rose, with Or Rose in the new seminary. By the way, Art Green calls me. He wants to join Ohala because he's sending some of his students to Ohala. So he needs a letter to Pam. So I wrote a letter, but I felt it was such a redundancy, you know. It's like if I were to apply for membership, somebody would have to write for a letter for me. It's sort of funny, but you have to go by the book. So Baruch Hashem, they go by the book. So Lev was there, not Lev, Evan was there, and he was the narrator. And Ruth was the voice of Hannah Rochel, and I was the voice of Reb Zalman there. And we recorded that whole piece at her grave, and it was wonderful prayer there too. I don't know, you know, I was talking to her and saying my thing about that she should take care of the Tochter rabbis, you know, women who follow in her footsteps. And that I wouldn't mind to have more dialogues with her if she would want to come in a dream, you know, like that dialogue is there. It was a hot day, and the same cemetery is also where my parents are buried, so I went there. And to an ancestor, Reb Moshe Yagid, on my mother's side, who was the author of a book, hi Karen, who was the author of a book, Machzit HaShekel on Even HaEzer. Machzit HaShekel is on all the other Chalakim of the Shulchan Aruch, what was missing in the Even HaEzer, and he wrote that. So that's a shtickle yichus there too. Eliyahu brought over a sheikh, a very remarkable man who was a Naqshbandi sheikh, speaks pretty good English, and we had one of those holy conversations that happen when people want to show each other, see, like with the neshama, if you show me yours, I'll show you mine thing, and that was a beautiful thing. The chasana itself and the davening that happened at Bat Ayin was the best davening I had on that whole journey for all the other places where I was. It's just wonderful. You see how lit up all the people are. I can understand why Barya is so happy in that environment. Because nobody wears the same uniform, first of all. Somebody with this kind of a kapota, they're all trying out style, you know. And there was one young man, an Ashkenazi young man, who had opted for a Yemenite style, and he had a Yemenite cap with a little turban, and a Yemenite abaya there, and on his tallis he had tzitzis that were tied altogether differently. 13 times 339, no knots in between, and not the same cheshbon. And this guy is
that
telling.
the Yemenite style?
Huh?
Is that the Yemenite?
That's what he says. That's the Yemenite style, and he's somebody who, if you can show him one more finesse that's Yemenite, he'll do it. He's that kind of a person. Then you see somebody else with a Moroccan white abaya. So just, and some people without blue jeans davening right next to Streimlach, and it's just wonderful. But the davening was of such a sound, such a wonderful sound. And really, really people were there. And so they asked me to give a shtickle shiur, and I did in the afternoon. And that I couldn't record. I would have wanted to. We left for the Ukraine. Yotam and I, it was very good that he came with me. I couldn't have managed these things by myself. So in order to leave at 7 o'clock, you had to be there at 5 o'clock, which means you have to take your shirut at 4 o'clock. So we got, AM, yeah, before dawn. And never having been there, so we arrive and make our way through passport control, this and that. And I didn't know if the driver would meet us, but he recognized, that this was one of his customers, because if you have a black hat, that's already a simon for him, and I got my McGuckin's hat, and he got, it wasn't the same kind
The
of
black cowboy hat?
Yeah. But, and his name is Yuri, and the first thing he did is he took us out of the thing, took us into Kiev, asked if we wanted to drink something, and so I asked for some coffee, and be careful about coffee. What they do is get a little Nescafe in there, and then they put a little hot water and some sugar, and that's what you get, and sort of 3/4 of a plastic cup. Okay. So it turns out that I always have this thing dangling from me. As I'm about to sit down, I spill the coffee on me and the shirt, and the guns of mice, it goes like this. And we get into the car, and we drive away. The first place was going to be Berdichev. The countryside is very beautiful. Green fields. Wherever you go, you see that. And at one point, I stopped the car and I said, I got to take a picture. What's the picture? They had a beam there, and hanging were bundles of leaves. So at first I asked him, what's that? He says, that's when you go into the Schwitz. A besim, he called that. And so they were selling them there on the street, and I was so excited because I remember that when I was a kid and would go with Papa to the Schwitz, we would have such a besim, So all
Is that
that.
for scrubbing or beating?
Huh? No, this is for, you lift it up to the very highest place in the Schwitz, which is very hot, and you lather it, and then you come down on the back of the person, and they go, ah, like this. It's better than Bankis. So we're driving along, and interesting, every once in a while we come by one of those little onion dome churches, Russian Orthodox church, and the Catholics in the Ukraine were the Polish overlords. The population, the Ukrainian population, wanted to always be free, and on one of their banknotes, they have printed a picture of Bogdan Khmelnytsky as a liberator of the Ukraine. Poet Ivan Franko, so that's also there, yeah. So we drive by, and in front of the church was a priest dressed in a black outfit and with a beard, and I could imagine sort of Dostoevsky's Father Zosima there. It was very beautiful. The land seems to have a lot of water. The water table, in comparison to ours, is really high. Every kilometer or so, you see another pond in the field there. And all the land was green and lush and so on. So coming into Berdichev, it sounds like, at least our story goes like this, that there was a Rebbe by the name of Reb Lieber, who had an inn, and he was a rich man. And at one point the king came by, and he was in the middle of davening, and he didn't respond to him. And he had some of his people beat him for how dare he not respond to him, and he's still davening. When he finished davening later on, he explained why he didn't complain, didn't cry out, and said, I was talking to God, I couldn't. The king was so impressed by that he said, what can I do to make up for the insult and the hurt that I caused you? So he said, make this a yishuv for Jews. His name was Lieber, and so it was called Liberdichev first, but he didn't like the Lee in front because it was too egotistic. Lee, so it became Berdichev. Okay, so that's how the story goes, and that only later on non-Jews started to live in Berdichev, but it began as that kind of a shtetl. And I think you'll find in the Encyclopedia Judaica at least is mentioned as a, if you will, legend. Okay. The place that he brought us to, and I have a picture and I'll show it to you if you want to see it. A beautiful built ohel there. And it turns out that it's the work of one guy by the name of Yisrael Gabbai, who even before the Soviet government came down, was making trips all over. And turns out Gedalia Flia was the first one from this continent during the heavy communist time who went to Uman, found the grave, and so on and so forth. And so since that time, that people have come in and they have fixed up the graves of the rabbis.
He also found the chair. He found Reb Nachman's chair and dismantled it and brought it back to Israel in pieces.
That's right. That's right.
Where they reassembled it.
Where is it reassembled?
It's in the yeshiva.
In Mea Sharim they have a Braslav shul, and there the chair stands, and for a bris, the Sunday can sit in that chair. That's Kisa
So can
Shabbat.
I just, yesterday I came across something from an early issue of Shtemot by Yahud Ha'ari, who was one of the earliest of the Shomer HaTzairniks in Palestine. He tells the story that early on with the first Yeshuvim, that they were known by various names, including Plugot and things like that. They were never satisfied with what they were called. And one of the early Shomer HaTzairniks showed up in this meeting and told of a weekend he spent with the Bratzlovers in Yerushalayim and discovered
For Rosh Hashanah, called
exactly kibbutz gathering on Rosh Hashanah, and they voted then and there to refer to all their settlements in the future as kibbutzim. So, and the conclusion of the article by Yairi, who was obviously a total secularist, was that in the, how do you put it, in the attempt to forge a new and glorious future for the Jewish people, it is most interesting that we do derive things from our past. It's a beautiful statement.
I forgot with whom I had this conversation just yesterday about how Hasidim were the first
You were talking to someone
Aliyah.
on the phone and saying that Chovevei Tzion.
Right. They came later. Anyway, so we came there. There were a number of women in there, and davening, and the grave has got a black cover. And the whole point of grave is a strange thing. You got to get that. When they dig a grave, what they put on top looks sometimes as if they had enclosed the coffin with stone. It's not true. Let's call it Sion. You know, a sign, a locator, as it were. They don't bury them inside. Two strange things. If you've been to Machpelah, they have, they call this is Leah, you know, this one is Rivka, this one is Sarah, this is Abraham. And truth is that the graves are deep, deep down. And this is just a Tzion on top. But people take it and address it like the grave. Kever Rachel, the same situation. And more funny than them all is the Kever David. If you've ever been to the old city, Kever David is on the third floor of a building.
Yeah.
He's ascending.
Huh?
He's ascending.
Yeah, the ascended master, right? Yeah, so...
Is
was
Kever David actually beneath that building, or supposed to be?
that I don't know, but listen, in a sense it doesn't matter because you don't have, you can't locate these things exactly. If you've seen the Church of the Sepulchre, if you've ever been there, that every denomination has an extra shtickle corner on the sepulchre. Well, here was, in Uman you had Reb Nachman's cenotaph, if you want. And one side was on this side of the mechitza, and the other one was the other side of the mechitza. In the
Do
same
we know
way.
where the head's supposed to be?
Huh? I don't know. I'm not even sure that it's exactly the same place. When Gedalia first described where it was, he said it was in the yard close to a building, apartment building there.
Hmm.
So, and at this point there's a whole complex there. But let me continue. It's built so beautifully, and you come in and you have a feeling of good shelter. If I were to describe what vibe I got there from Reb Levi Yitzchak,
Sorry.
I would say beikar a welcoming vibe. You know, nothing much more like burning and so on and so forth, of great fervor. Then on the wall they have a number of things of Reb Levi Yitzchak. One in which he's teaching about the Zichirot. In the end of the Keddushat Levi, he has teachings about the Shesh Zichirot, which goes into what should you leave in your resident memory as a Jew. It's wonderful teaching. It's worth learning too. Maybe we do it. Also, there was that wonderful prayer, Gott von Avrom, Yitzchak and Yaakov, Bahit dein lieb Volk Yisrael in Yiddish, which was the prayer that he has written for women to recite with Havdalah. And I sat there, and what you usually do is you recite the name in Kapitel Kuf Yud Tes. And there were, of course, Sforim around, so you could always learn a shtikler of his Torah, with the notion being that Siftotav dovevot bakever, that his lips will move along with you when you learn from his Sefer. Since he was known as the one who was a great sanigor, the pleader for us, I asked him to plead because I came just back from from Israel, and I need to describe that to you too. First of all, it's very hard to get around because so many cars are already on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And there you see many of the cars had little bands of orange, which is to say they're against the moving of the settlers. Very few have blue bands, which are there for it. Many people don't have any of them. But as I talked to one of my cabbies there, and he described one thing that for all the netiyot that I have to say to people, we've got to leave the Gush Kativ. Nevertheless, he points out, he says, he would be all for removing the settlers if we could really have a guarantee that things will stop. But if you read what they're saying and what they have written and what they are broadcasting is that they won't give us any menucha until we are out from that area. So he says, so why give in? He was a simple person, you know, and that's what he was saying to me. That's what touched him. So when I spoke at Kol HaNeshama, I asked the people there to be especially caring during the next little while, because the tikkun of the Sinat Chinam is coming up with the 3 weeks. If you have been during the 3 weeks in Israel, you know how antsy everybody gets there and irritable and so on. So I was saying you gotta do something really gentle and kind. Then, if you are for the point that the settlers should leave, then you have to go and open up your homes to them and say, until you get decent housing elsewhere, you can stay with us. if the left really means it, then they have to go ahead and open it up. And that's part of what they reported in the and that's a fair thing. So I asked Reb Yitzchak to intercede for us during this time, because it's going to be a very hard time, and especially since he's such an Ohev Yisrael, that the caring in each group, that they should recognize who their brothers and sisters are and how they have to do it. We got to Berditchev because that was the closest place on the way to Mezritch. So you can imagine we were tired already by that time. We come to Mezritch, and there they have now a nice, how would I say, Linat Laila, they're like a place where you can stay overnight. They have a mikveh in the place so that you can go. And I was telling you, the person who set this up is someone by the name of Yisrael Gabay. So he traveled all over and collected money and laid out a lot of money of his own in order to build these places and to set them up in such a way.
When was this?
Pardon?
When did he do this? How long ago?
It looks to me that this was after the fall of the Soviet Union, because he wouldn't have been able to be megayes all that stuff at that time, but he's really gotten it together. You see, being in Israel, megayes, all these words start coming in. Just the same way as in the Ukraine, I would say pavolye, all the Ukrainian words would start coming. It's wonderful. So we made our way to Mezritch and stayed overnight there. So in the morning, to mikveh, to daven at the graveside. This time of the year was really calm and quiet, and that almost the whole time the ohel was for me alone. I could sit there and daven. Now, what did I want with this trip? Because after all, it's been in my mind for a while, and I didn't have that kind of koyach to be able to go and say and invest in that. And yet I felt it was important I should do it. If I didn't do it now, I don't think I would have done it at any other time. Because there's always the taina that Jewish renewal is sort of a new thing. It has no connection to the past. It isn't. And my feeling was that that fourth turning of Hasidism that we are starting at this point needed to be connected to that shalshelut. So, sitting there and I talked to the Baal Shem Tov a bit Yiddish, a bit English. I think he understood me regardless, about Jewish renewal, who we are and what we are trying to do, and why I think that I have the chutzpah to think that we are in connection with him and so on. And then I sat quietly. And there is a mythic way in which you can say it. Then the Baal Shem started to speak to me and told me and so on and so forth. But don't take it literally. It wasn't that way. But there I sat and I got to see something. It came more in a visual thing and went like this. There is a flow that comes from God, a divine flow. And that is what gets us always to return the compliment, as it were, wanting to pray, to adore, to lift our hearts and so on. And then there are some people who harness that for moral, ethical, social purposes. And then it becomes minhag, and it becomes halacha, and it becomes ever more constricting. And that flow gets dammed up at that point, and gets into such minutiae that has very little to do with the original part of the flow. So here's what he shows me, that he went and he opened the sluice and restored the flow. And with that, he was saying to me, and you, Zalman, are doing the same thing. You are connected. And that the point is not who we are and what name we have, but what do we do? Restoring that flow. Okay? Well, that was a very, very powerful thing. The Wolf Kisses was buried next to him. So I gave him regards from Seth Fishman and his family. They are Kisses. And from Barbara Kisses, who is here in Boulder at Naropa. And then I moved the chair over to the cenotaph for the Ohev Yisrael, the Apter. And with him I had a wonderful time. Mamar HaMuskar. No, I won't tell it right now. Okay, that has to wait. That has to wait. I thanked him a lot for that phrase, "Beha'ir le'vesum seichel," and asked him that when I open his sefer, he should give me the bracha that my heart should wake up and my mind should be clear for that. From him I had a sense sort of a bracha that I will help me, a sort of a nachasdike, gegesinterheit, it'll be okay, Didn't hear any great revelations, but that enough, it's not bad. By that time it was already noon, because I started at 6 in the morning, and between davening and between doing all that and reading the kvitlach from people who had given them along to me and so on and so forth, it took some time. Yeah. Sometimes I also got a shtickle answer that tells so-and-so such and such, so that's nice.
Did you scribble them down?
Huh?
Did you write them down?
Not only that, I had already passed them on. Okay. So, there are two other places I wanted to be in the Ukraine. One is Zholkiv, the town where I was born. It's 800 kilometers on lousy roads, so I gave up on that. I didn't think, I didn't want to come home so zahargen zerbrochen. Plus the fact that I didn't think that I wanted to go sort of like the people make a time check, Hello, Baal Shem, goodbye. I wanted to spend some time there. And the driver had seichel. He knew how to set it up and leave it alone. And there were always some Ukrainian kids there with water and with something. So for a little bakshish, for with a towel so you can wash your hands after the cemetery and so on. The other place was Hadich, that was on the other side of the Dniester. Dnieper. No, the Dnieper goes through Kiev. Dniester is more east. So Hadich was 6 hours driving where Reb Zalman was buried. And they told me there that, so I asked him, I was ready to maybe do that too, and asked him, is there a mikveh there? And he says, no, but there is a very steep thing down to the river, and the Chabadnikas who come go into that river. So I said, okay, I'll meet Reb Zalman in the Tanya at home rather than there, didn't have the koyach. So the next place was, so by that time we had left on Wednesday morning, so by that time it's Thursday afternoon, there isn't that much time left. We went to Shepitovka. No, first to Anipoli. And Anipoli was the grave of the Maggid of Mezritch and Reb Zusha. And that was wonderful. From Reb Zusha, I got a Yesher Koyach for translating things into vernacular for Amcha. Yeah, they're very opyani, And from the Maggid, what I got was two things. One that he was doing Kadmut HaSeichel. Like Chabad begins already with Chochmah. Kadmut HaSeichel is that which precedes even Chochmah. And that's what needs attention at this point, to get into Kadmut HaSeichel.
Hello?
Because that's
Yes. Hello there.
the origin of which direction consciousness is going to go. Let me spell it out a little bit, okay?
It's good. Let me just ask you, are you still in...
There is a switchboard in the back here, the reticular formation system in the cerebellum.
Where are you calling from, Vince?
And that
Can I call
determines to what frequency of mind
you back? Love.
our awareness
Thank
will go.
you.
Okay, got that?
Blessings.
So right now there's been something on the internet, a shmuas. From time to time I was saying this thing about that the brain has more capacity than it actually uses, 10% is being used and the rest of it isn't. So Richard Kaplan had said that in a lecture, and somebody opposed him and sent him a whole geschäft that this is a lie, it isn't so, somebody who should know, and to debunk the 10% thing, it's on the web, a ganze Meise, okay? So Miles writes back to him, and I write back to him, saying that they're right from the point of view of brain physiology. It's not a question like part of the brain isn't working, because it's constantly the exchanges are going on. That's not the point. But the range where mind can go, most people see it in the shopping mall mentality, you know, in what comes off the television. But if you say, can you go higher, can you go higher, that's the part that hasn't been explored yet. So we got to that. So that's the Maggid, okay. Kadmut HaSeichel.
That's
And
the defending your life view of the brain.
Huh?
The defending your life view of the use of mind and brain.
Mm-hmm. That's right, like the guy says, I got 50%. The other thing he said, if you're worried about the variety of your people, don't be worried. I wasn't worried either about mine. Okay, that's the end of that. So then we left. That was a very clean, quiet place, the one in Anipolis. And everywhere you have those round things that are with a tablet there. Sometimes they have found the old one in the cemetery. Sometimes they haven't. So they have made new gravestones there. So from there we went to Shepitovka, and in Shepitovka, the reason why that was interesting, he says, and this is my driver, he said, you should stop in Shepitovka. I didn't have anything in mind, because the one that was the Shepitovka died in Israel and was buried there, so great stories about him, how he came to the Node Yehuda, who was an enemy of the Hasidim, and he had this wonderful vikuach with him, and it's printed in some places. So, but he wasn't there, so I was wondering, why do you want me to go to Shepitovka? So the driver says, because Reb Pinchas Koretz is there. So he took us to a place, and everywhere he knows where the keeper of the keys is, because there isn't anyone living there, so except a Ukrainian neighbor, and they are in charge, and you give them some key money too for the key, you know, for opening up. And the place was not yet built up, but you could see, it was a brick structure, but it hadn't yet been finished on the outside. From Reb Pinchas I got, what you see in the Medrash Pinchas is obiter dicta, one here, one there, and they don't come in a particular order. but there is some stuff that people should know. Some of it you began to translate, where he says, everything you can do with breath. He says, I found out. If I would have found it out when I was younger, I could have gotten a lot farther. So I've always looked for something with pranayama there, and he has that. And then he says, well, who is God? God is the collection of all souls. He's talking about this holographic thing. So, it's like saying everybody pays attention to Reb Nachman to Ishbitze, and they don't pay attention to Reb Pinchas, and he's got good stuff. Okay? I went with his broche on to Reb Nosson, who is buried in Braslav. And there you have to go up a whole gangway until you go up top of the mountain to Reb Nosson's grave, which is very spare, very clean, very, how would I say, anivistic. You don't have a sense that he wanted to make a lot of tumult. If he could just reflect Reb Nachman, that's all he wanted to do. So it was a good place, a warm place, and I had a sense that he's saying, I've only begun to unpack what Reb Nachman has in the Likutei Halochos and the Likutei Tfilos, and there's so much more. And that's his message, okay? So then we came to Uman, and we stayed, by that time was Thursday night, and we got into our room, and we were out cold for a while. Uman was also the place where the driver lives, so he went home to his mishpoche, and we had a deal that he would come on Friday morning and take us around to do a little shopping in Uman, because I was going to do a lot of things on Shabbos there anyway. So he takes us, and it's not even Woolworth, I wanted to get some of these Ukrainian things, Even I had once an occasion, we were in Santa Fe and we wanted to buy Indian beading, and then we looked at it, made in China. So you can't get that kind of stuff anymore. But then he took us to a garden. That's a park, and you have to pay entrance fees. It's called Sophia Park. So it turns out, and there are all kinds of stories, but the way he tells the story, Count Potocki had a daughter by the name of Sophia. He loved her very much, and there was a question, in that uprising that happened around Uman, when Khmelnytsky came, so he wanted the Jews, and he wanted the Polish one to surrender. Potocki is a great family of nobles in Poland. They were part of the electors of the king. So he, in the end, they murdered his daughter. So, like the Taj Mahal in a way, he built this beautiful park, gorgeous park. In the center of it is a pond. Then there's a higher pond, a little farther up. Without any pumps, he has a thing that looks like a snake with its mouth open to the top, and an 18-foot fountain comes from there. When we first walked in there, my nose got such a hit of Lindenblüten, lime tree, that beautiful smell that there was there. And it was sort of an arboretum that he had built for her. So we went around and looked for things that we could buy. And there wasn't just much, a couple of pieces I was able to buy there, but nothing that we had hoped, like a blouse with that embroidery, that the Ukrainian stuff, none of that was there. And then I was told that Reb Nachman, when he was in Uman, would sneak into that garden and sit there and pray. and there was a swan. There were a couple of swans there, and it's just a very, if you it had some like Belvedere, sort of a, no, how would I say, a gate with four, just very beautifully done. So the nobles of those days used to compete with each other who can build more beautiful things. And I could see why Reb Nachman would do that. Musicians were playing in that park. So when Reb Nachman says that even from the music of the Goyim, the glory of God shines, he can have a notion of why that is. So we stayed in a hotel. It's called Shari Tzion, the hotel. And with Hebrew letters, big, which is sort of a block away from the grave of Reb Nachman, the mikveh, and all the other stuff. On the second floor of that hotel is a restaurant. And so Yotam and I went and had a meal there. It was pretty good. Lots of non-Ashkenazic women and children were there at that time on a tour of those places. So I was so amazed to see the interest that non-Ashkenazi people have.
From Israel?
Yeah, yeah.
That's great.
It was amazing. Anyway, went to mikveh. Before Shabbos, we were told that if we want to eat on Shabbos, we have to pay for the Shabbos meals $35 per person, and we're going to be fed keyad hamelech.
Was this for all of Shabbos or for
all
one
of
day?
Shabbos? All of Shabbos. So Friday night, two kinds of fish and stuff like that, and chicken and kugels of all varieties and salads and so on. So Shabbos noon, they had a fantastic cholent, and I had to keep myself from taking too much. It was so good. So it was Kiyad HaMelech, and then we came back for Suda Shlishit, and they had other stuff there for us. Now, Reb Nachman. At first I was told that, I was shown there, this is the way the Kohanim go. And so for the Kohanim, they had us there someplace in the back, in a separate little room, pretty far away from the grave. Now, among Chabad people, there's been the statement, the custom, that says, Kivrei tzadikim einam metamim. You go anyway. So I decided I wasn't going to stay in that little Kohen place, and I went in to the front. And Friday night was a nice person was there. Was on Friday morning to the davening. He still knew Reb Gedalia Koenig and some of the older Braslov people, but he was never like a candle that was burnt out, The other people who were there seemed to be very idiosyncratic people. One of them, again, a Sephardi, and not a Sephardi, sort of Edot HaMizrach, he was doing more Moroccan stuff, okay? And screaming always at the top of his lung, Yehei Shemei Rabbah, and all the other things that they add in the Kaddish. Turns out he also is a Kohen, and he was hanging around and leaning over at the grave and so on. All kinds of good Sforim there. So I took a number of Sforim to my room because it was impossible to sit and learn there because, how would I say it? There's an element between a heart's outcry and shtick, and it was more on the side of shtick than a heart's outcry, so I just didn't. I asked Shalvi about that too, and she was saying that the first time she came to Uman had a very hard time. So I can imagine Rosh Hashanah, when there are over 10,000 people there and there's fantastic davening going on, that
Yeah.
this is a different story.
10,000
Because-
people.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they have built this thing up in an amazing way there, and the people from Derech Tzadikim and so on and so forth cater for the people to eat. That's not the hotel stuff. That's a whole other, like a field kitchen, you know, for the people. So I spent some time leaning on his grave and talking with him. I didn't really get. I'm going back to see what, you know. I really didn't get anything coming from there. It was more one way from me to him.
Maybe he doesn't like the shtick either.
Huh?
Too noisy.
Maybe he doesn't like the shtick either.
Didn't
I mean,
like
he's
the
such an
quiet.
anti-shtick Rebbe. You know?
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
was wondering
Left.
if you could go back at night, you know, were you there like overnight?
No, night doesn't help either. I mean,
They're there all the time.
it's different. It's different in because they have the thing about hishtapchut hanefesh, you know,
Yes.
and usually screaming out loud and the thing and sighing at the top of your, you know.
It's noisy.
It didn't.
That gets no rest.
What can I tell you? I wasn't. I would have wanted to be able to come back and say, "Uman, wow," you know.
Yeah.
So when I raised it with Shalvi, she said, "Yeah, she'd experienced the same thing." When I talked to Gedalia Fleer, he had said to me, "Don't expect much in Uman."
Uh-huh.
Aha.
He said.
So when does it sort of cross the line to-
With Reb Nosson, he says. He said Reb Nachman is very wurdig. Well, I felt that part of Gvur withholding rather than coming out with Gvur.
When does it cross the line to almost avodah zarah?
That depends where the line is drawn. No, really, really, I can see Miss Nagdam drawing the line, you know, so strong that even a Sefer Torah could be seen as Avodah Zarah, you know. The Torah is there to teach you and not to kiss it and to hug it and to do stuff with it.
I mean, in 1970, when I was studying in Israel, I would go from time to time to the Bratslav Yeshiva and have a be in a shiur. After leaving, went back a year later. This was when Nadya and I were together, and we get to the yeshiva, and some of the characters there see me, and they come out, "Oh, you're back," and everything like that. Come, we got a shiur. I said, fine. Introduce Nadya and say, you know, she wants to study too. No. I said, I'm not coming in unless you let her in to study. All right? No. And they're really very, very machmir about every step of their derech, and you can't wiggle around it with them. It's tough. You know?
Couple of more things past that thing. We left on Sunday morning very early in order to get to Kiev to be able to fly back, and that was fine. Before I left, I had gotten a message from Tzvi Ish in Fort Collins that a shliach of the Tasha Rebbe is the one who gave him smicha, said that he wants to get in touch with me. So he called me up, and I did talk to him. He was supposed to have come and seen me someplace. At Eilat Chaim, yeah. And he didn't show up, but I talked to him on the phone and said that he should give he has a shlichus to me. The shlichus is from the son of the Slonim Rebbe, the one who did the Nesiva Shalom. I think I've told you of my meeting, huh? Reb Noach, yeah.
The one that you met last time you were there.
Yeah, that wonderful meeting. So, and that he has now published some books, and he is looking for someone to translate them.
Wow.
So I had met in Yerushalayim this.
So who has written the books?
The son of Reb Noach, yeah. So these are sichot that he had given, They don't give his name here, they just say Admor Shlita, you know. So I wanted to see what's in those books, and it took me a while to get into it, but until he cleared his throat to get to what he wants to say.
That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah, because look, you have to play by the rules, you know. So the Ramban in his Hakdama and the Sefer of Eov, he
Is it
opens
okay to
up.
say what I'm going to say? Right?
Right, so he works with that. But then he gets to the Posek Achen Ruach Hi Be'enosh Ve'nishmat Shaddai Tevinem, and he goes and says, Haneshama hi mevia le'adam lahakir et kono. It is the neshama that lets you see it. Ha'otzma shel hakarat hamoach o hergesh lelo or haneshama enenu afilu begeder mashal v'dimi lekoch shel nishmat Yehudi b'shar shu me'ira bo. Ki haneshama hi etzem me'atzmut yitbarach chelek elokam mimal. That's wonderful stuff that he's saying, that it goes not so much by the moach than it goes by the neshama when the neshama is lit up. וזה כוח האמונה של נשמת שדאי תבינים שנותנים לאדם הרגשה ברורה שאין להסתפק בה, שכל העולם טובל בים של חסד. You know?
Tovel?
Yeah.
Say that again.
Is dipped in a sea of grace. ורחמה ועל כל מעשיו. So that tripped me this morning in davening to Mechalkel Chaim b'chesed, Mechayim Meitim Berachamim Rabim. And you have, when you think, Sheba passed on, and what does she find on the other side? There's like a resurrection coming, to know that I can be without a body, and there I am. And what's that feel like? It's Rachamim Rabim. So those who had out-of-body experiences, who had near-death experience, all report the Rachamim Rabim. And then I went further, that, at first you come into that situation, you feel like fallen from where you were, Somech Noflim. You come with a trauma, from this lifetime, Rofei Cholim. You have all kinds of connections that hold you back from going further, Matir Asurim. Umikayem emunato lishenei afar, So that really got to me as to a meaning of that paragraph of Gevurot as being in that place where you are in the after-death thing. Another piece that I found here in this other volume, he has them according to years. And these are the shmusen he gives at Sudah Shlishit.
This is also the son of
Yeah,
Rabno.
yeah. And so let me see what I found here. It also took a while until...
Hate to interrupt you, it's Barya. They're stuck at Heathrow.
What?
Barya,
He's
he's
stuck at
Heathrow.
Hello. Yeah.
It's about 7 hours behind.
Do you need to have a place where to be? In London. Yeah.
Tuesday. It comes after, right after the end of it.
Yeah.
London's not a good place to get stuck right now.
Yeah.
Where was he going to be tonight?
I don't know, but he was due to be here, obviously. He's 7 hours. He's 7 hours.
Yeah.
Schedule, he should have been in New York by now, probably.
I said, well, where's the student? And she says, he just died. I got out of there.
Yeah.
Noah Shalom.
That's right. And you come off there, and there is at Kennedy, there is a Jewish chapel, and there is a way in which you'll be able to arrange to stay or something like this. I don't know how. Okay.
How, he was on the time on the phone.
Well, especially in London right now after they had this gesher. Yeah. Hey son, ki malochav yitzavaloch lishmorcha b'chol dorochecho, okay? All right. Where are you with money if you need some? Okay. So please be in touch again, all right? Once you're...
There was that story I read early this morning.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, Kol Tuv. You may be able to find a way where you can leave your luggage and walk to some place.
A parent, brother, or sister were sent to England for
Yeah,
We should say.
okay, Kol Tuv.
Yeah.
But,
they were watching it on the television and they got
wow.
So were
What
they
are they
gonna
gonna
be
do for
okay?
Shabbos? Because they're not gonna make it.
This is his Geschäft, I'll tell you later, okay? Don't have to say everything right now. He's making some good decisions.
That's what it always means.
So is this the sefer that was?
Yeah, this is, so I got a friend of mine in Yerushalayim. His name is, Yoshua Starret. He is the one who translated some work of the Piasetzner and that book by Eckstein. Wonderful young man, and his heart is so much where we are, and his social thing has got them locked into the Haredi world, so he is struggling with that. So here's a shtickle. V'hinei, af shebe'emet hayu Yisrael b'matzav she'efshar ledaber aleim. He's talking about the thing about Moshe Rabbeinu hitting the rock, and why is it considered a sin? ומשום כך אמר הקדוש ברוך הוא ודיברתם על הסלע. אבל משה ואהרון לא האמינו בישראל שהם במדרגה שמסוגלים לשמוע וניתן לפעול עליהם בדרך של דיבור, והיו סבורים שבמצב כזה של וירב העם אין אל מי לדבר ולא יוכלו לקבל מהם השפעה. They had given up. Their sin was they had given up on their flock. Now this is sort of a Rebbe in the first year of his, no, not the first year, but he's in the beginning of his Rebbeship and is saying something about how he has to deal with people. וזה גרם שבאמת לא היו יכולים לשמוע מהם. And because they had given up on them, they couldn't really hear him either. You know? כי בכדי שמנהיג יוכל להשפיע על אלה שצריכים לקבל את השפעתו, דרושים שני תנאים. האחד שהמשפיע יאמין בכוחות של המקבלים ויעריך אותם. That he has to esteem them. והשני, שהמושפע יכיר בזה שהמשפיע מאמין בו ובכוחותיו. To know that your teacher believes in you and your capacity to do that. שאפילו אם חטא, הוא עדיין מעריך אותו, מאמין בעצם מהותו, ומאמין שעוד יש לו עתיד. אך אם המשפיע אינו מאמין בכוחו של המושפע, לא יוכל להשפיע עליו בשום אופן. וכן, אם המושפע אינו מכיר בזה שהמשפיע מעריך אותו, ומאמין בכוחותיו, לא יוכל לקבל ממנו. Now, you know, so it was worth for me to go through the thicket of his working through the psukim and the meforshim to get to to a gem like this, and I thought I want to let you know.
Beautiful.
Another thing,
Reb Zalman, the only thing you didn't describe is at the Mezritch's grave.
yeah,
Was there any communication back and forth
from who?
when you said you were?
The Maggid.
Yeah,
Yeah, I did say, yeah, Kadmut HaSeichel.
Oh, right.
You know, and the variety of Talmidim, so don't worry about that, you know. So, yeah. Here is a proof of the newest, Netiv Halev, by Harav HaKodesh Rabar Lerot, the 32 Meditations of the Heart and other teachings from Rabar Lerot, edited and translated with commentary by me and Yair Goelman, right? And it's now in print. And
Hillel Goldman.
Yeah, he's got Yair Hillel Goelman, both names.
Did he change his
yeah.
name? He added a name.
So it'll be a nice green cover, and it'll have it's over 120, 130 pages of beautiful material there. And the reason why I paid attention to him more was because beginning with Bachya Ibn Pakuda, you have the thing of are there some mitzvahs you can fulfill with consciousness? So that's why he wrote the book Chovot HaLevavot. And since that time, there have been more and more people who wrote about it, but he was sort of the last one. When I came and asked Gershon Sholem in '59, who would he say is among Hasidim or Kabbalists who is doing the best thing in spirit, the latest thing in spiritual direction, he sent me to Reb Zalman. Now, I'd never heard of a Rebbe with a last name, you know, so I would have had to say Reb Zalman from Ungvar or something like this. Oh, I forgot to tell you about bells. Wait, yeah. So he told me about. He says, I asked, where do I find them? He says, you go when they daven and where they scream the loudest. That's where it is. And I found them, and so it's been a long time in working to get this into shape, so it becomes a book with a good introduction and with.
Is that going to be available at the Kala?
At the Kala.
Great.
And also at the Kala, Daniel is going to have Creator of a Modern Kabbalist, that series. So Baruch Hashem. What else do I want to tell you?
The bells.
Bells.
Bells, yes. So I'm going to pick up. I need a visa for Yotam, which we didn't get here, and visas to the Ukraine not an easy thing. So I call up Derech Tzadikim, and you have to go and find in Beis Yisrael, you know, the little Simtaot in Yerushalayim is sort of on the other side of George in relation to Meir Sharim. I find my way finally there with Yoshua Starrett helping me, and we talk, and I have to pay for that, so they'll get me the visa fast and so on. Then I said to him, I want to also go to the Belzer Shul. Now, Reb Sholem of Belz had built a shul with crenellation that looked like a castle of some sort, but also like the Kaaba, because it's not separate towers and so on. It's just one massive thing. And he fasted 1,000 nights. No, he stayed up 1,000 nights, and that's the whole Reb Malkin story and how she helped him. And
Consecutive? Consecutive?
Yeah. And the last night was the hardest night of them all, because that's when the Satrache came and she kept him from falling asleep so he shouldn't lose it. Wonderful story. So he built a shul, and he was blind toward the end of his life, and he had a friend, Reb Shimele Yaroslava, who came to visit him, so he went to show him the shul. So the two blind Rebbes walk around the shul, feeling the vibes here, oh, ho, 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 such a kavon, oh, gewaldig, you know. Then he comes to a place and says, what happened here? So Reb Sholem says, this was when I was out of town. So, because he was watching at every place. So Bells has become a very, very formidable thing.
Where exactly is it?
Huh?
Where exactly is Bells?
It's when you come in from the old road from Tel Aviv, on the high place over there, overseeing stands this great place. Vast.
Yeah,
I have a picture, and I'll show
the
you.
largest synagogue in the world now.
Really?
That was their intention when they built it.
That's right.
And because they expect the Mashiach to stop there on the road, right? And
Yeah.
together.
Everything is like this. They have the stender of the old Belzer Rebbe there enclosed in glass.
Oh.
And
Wow.
so I come in, and they sort of look, who's this guy? What does he want? It doesn't look like one of ours, and So yeah, what do you want? I want to see the big shul. Why do you want to see the big shul? I said, because ich komme from Belzer. And then it's already opening the door a little bit. What kind and which where and so on and so forth. And, they all know that gossip as to who is from where and this and that.
What's the normal dress? Why
The
didn't
normal
you
dress I see by your outfit that you're a Belzer, which is a narrow brim, a flat top hi-hat,
Ah.
whereas the Satmara have sort of a round, look like a French priest, you know? I mean, they're different. The Gera you can tell by their outfit and so on and so forth. So finally I convinced him that he should let me into the shul. The place is awesome. 3 tiers of women's gallery.
Wow.
There are huge chairs like a cathedral, and each one has sort of like a to put sforim there and like a shul like in Europe used to be.
Yeah.
The bima, there's a golden metal grate around it like a root screen, lahavdal elav havdalas in the in some churches, you know. And so the guy takes me around, lets me see it. The ceiling is very high, and I ask, how do they do here when all the people are here? Does the chazan have a strong enough voice? And he tells me that they consulted about acoustics, and that the acoustics are excellent. So they don't need amplification, which is a very important part.
Even though it's a very high ceiling.
Yeah.
And
They
that would be
also
the
have
shape.
a huge room, which is the tish room, where you have like bleachers, and the Rebbe's tish
Wow.
there. And I have a picture there. I'm going to try and find it, of the people sitting there for the Siyum Hashas that they were doing at the end of the Daf Yomi thing. They are excellent musicians, by the way, because if you can hear sometimes their intros to the Hasidic Niggunim, which they keep straight, but the intros are very sophisticated. Sometimes country, sometimes classical, very beautiful
You
stuff.
mean the instrumental?
An instrumental, before the thing comes out. So then they want to know a little bit more from me, and I asked, do you know such and such a Niggun? The Hayim Pepias for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, Yom Noroim. I says, no, how does it go? They sing it a different one. I said, Yosele Krakowitz was my Elter Zayde. All of a sudden doors opened up a little bit more, you know. And I must sing it into a tape recorder. And they brought me down to the office, sat me down in front of a tape recorder, and I sang in that one. Then I started to sing other bells and Niggun. I remember, Hahamav Vilbuno Bahingir Yamse Esrit Fayem Esinaim Saimoy Istiba. He said, that's the Niggun that we use for Hakofis now. It's the Hakofis Niggun, you know. So I was in. And that was my Belzer adventure. Okay. That's about time.
So there's an emphasis on the women, though. I mean, there's 3 tiers in the balcony for women.
Yeah. And they have good schools, girls' schools.
It's Malka's
I would like to share too.
Please.
We just came back from Israel too.
Yes.
And we spent a week in Jerusalem, actually in Nachlaot. And I took my daughter with, she came with us, and so this was for her an interesting experience. We started with Reb Shalom Brot and Judy. We were the guests for Shavuot, and we spent a Tikkun Leil Chatzot with them. And for Shacharit, we went with the rest of Jerusalem to the Kotel, which
the
is
rest of Jerusalem.
it's just an amazing experience. Everyone.
I was so afraid at that point that Cholila V'chas, if they would have done something when we were walking through the
It
gate
felt
of
so
Yosef.
safe, so safe and so serene, and it's like water flowing down the mountain. It's just like from every corner, people,
Goshen, like
all kinds of outfits, women, children, everything. And there's no room to stand, you're like a sardine there. But the energy was really amazing. And then I went with Lael, we left Tom with a Hasidic man there. What's special is that just before Amidah, all the little minyanim align, and the 3 steps are all done exactly at the same time. It's very powerful. But what we did is, Lael and I left the big Rachava, I don't know how you say it, and we went on the south end of the Kotel, there is the conservative and the reform movement services,
Wow.
where men and women lead services there. And there I met a few friends from DLTI. Ezra and Deborah and people that with me in DLTI were there leading services. It was amazing. And then all of it was walking there and walking back. But the whole week, every morning we got up and we studied Tanya with Reb Shalom. It was very nice. It's a very special yeshiva about studying together. Very nice. It's all, most of it is done in English. It's Shalom Raz, and there are a few, and Avram Satin,
Yes.
and a few other wonderful young teachers, very, very open-minded, very spiritual. And when men and women study together,
That would be a good place for people.
very good place for people to, for everyone here to send people to there, especially young, lots of young crowd there. Lots of Boulder people are there. It was like little Boulder. Yes, our Esh Kodesh people, the young Esh Kodesh people go there. And they're in good connection with
He comes
Bat
and teaches
Ayin.
here from time to time, and Bat Ayin, that's where
Yeah.
the Kala.
I met Dina there.
Yes.
I met
Yeah.
her, and she invited us to the wedding. And we
Uh-huh.
were at the wedding, the
You were at the
Chassanim.
wedding.
It
Oh.
was wonderful. And so I just wanted to share. It's a very nice place to go to when you're in Jerusalem.
Let me see if I can find that
And
piece.
support them. They need a lot of
Welcome
support.
home.
I mean, another, wonderful experience if people spend time in Israel and happen to be there. When I was a student there, I went to Kfar Chabad for the celebration of when the Reb Zalman was,
Yeah,
what's it,
Kiss, yeah.
right? And it starts, at sundown and the one I experienced, I stood on these rafters from whatever it was, 7, 8 o'clock at night until 5 in the morning, unable to move because there are so many people there. Because at 5 in the morning, the Rebbe called from New York. But I will have to get them made up. I have a series of slides that I took, pictures that I took, of Zalman Shazar at the head table.
Yeah.
And they're drinking, and they're drinking, and they're drinking. And at 2 in the morning, because I have it on the time on it, was when Shazar was supposed to give, a vort.
Yeah.
Now he is so drunk, all right? And I'm thinking, this is my first year in Israel. I think this is amazing. The president of the state of Israel is Shiur, and he's given over Torah, all right? And his head is going down further and further as he mumbles and mumbles there, all right? But the sing, and you can't move. You're like this on the rafters, and there's like that. But you're singing and dancing all night long.
You should hear sometimes, when sometimes people on grass and they're freilich and the mind is open, how some Chabadnikas do it with vodka.
I know.
It is so amazing how they can keep their mind in this way and see connections that you wouldn't expect them. So that's why I got into the thing about that. When it comes to schnapps and all the other things, is what games do you play? There are some people who play drunken, rowdy games and they drink for that, and some people play sexual games. And I see them play games.
Well, I learned how to do this from Michael Roth, that we would get together once a week at this Mexican restaurant, drink heavily, and then study. And we did that for several years, and it was the most amazing experience because you get more. It's like you get more sober as you drink, as you're totally focused on the text.
Tequila. Wait, I want to bring you that bell.
And if anybody actually needs it, there is a...
What's it hold around 3,000?
Okay. Yeah?
Wow.
Thank you. So take a look. Over here is from the head table looking at the assembled. And this is just a downstairs place. And this is the head table.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why it's like that's a Reshut
I remember when
Harabim.
they decided
It's like the
to-
Mikdash. I thought, oh, they built the Beit Mikdash.
The whole thing is that it's on the Derech Mashiach,
Yeah.
and I remember reading when they decided to build it that they wanted to make it a little like the Mikdash because the Mashiach would stop there and daven before he made it to the chutzpah. But
What mythology? It's amazing.
but what I mean, it must hold around 3,000. It's
Amazing.
You know that the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh,
Yeah.
as usual, talks about korbanot. So here is my version of the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh. Rashei Chadashim le'amcha natata. It begins the same way. Leshinui veset leyamim vedamim. Zeman hitchatshut lechol toldotam. בהיותם מתקרבים אליך בתפילה ותשובה, ואהבה עזה לכפר באדם. זיכרון לכולם יהיו, as you see, I'm staying close to the original text. ותשועת נפשם מיד שונאים. מזבח חדש בציון תכין ועליות, instead of עולות ראש חודש, ועליות ראש חודש נעלה אליו. ושירי ידידות נשירה ברצון ובעבודת בית המקדש, נשמח כולנו ושירי דוד עבדיך הנשמעים בעיריך האמורים בלשונות רבים בבית התפילה לכל העמים. אהבת עולם תביא לכולנו וברית הורים ובנותינו תזכור ויביאנו לציון עירך ברינה ולירושלים בית מקדש בשמחת עולם ושם נעשה ונתקרב אליך באהבה כמצוות רצונך. You see the change in language. ועל ידי עבדיך הנביאים כתוב לאמור, והיה מדי חודש בחודשו ומדי שבת בשבתו יבוא כל בשר להשתחוות לפני, אמר אדוני. Then goes Elokeinu Elokei Avotenu, and Chadesh Aleinu. And the tziruf for this month in Tammuz is Hey Vav Hey Yud, beginning with mother, son, daughter, father, in that order of the four-part Sufi. Okay.
Chodesh Tov. Thank you. Beautiful Yeshua.
The Niggun of the Maggid, which is sung in bells and is sung in Lubavitch, so that gives you an idea of the spread of that Niggun, goes Yai dai dai da havubai yai dai di 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 dam dam yai dai 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 yai dai di 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 dam yai dai dai da dai ya di di dai dai yai dai 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 yai di di dam 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 aha 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 dam dam ai dam ai dam bam ai dai dai da di da da ai dai 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 da 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 di dam bam ai dai dai da di da 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 melech rachmon rachaim ulayni toiv mighty if he do ashluni melech rachmon rachaim ulayni toiv mighty vidu ashluni ashivo elayni behamoin rachmecho biglalo v'sheyosi retzonecho shuva elayni behamoin rachmecho biglalo